right, good morning and happy Friday. Here we go. So this week, today, we're going to bring all of this together. And this week we had a pretty good, I would say, exchange of information in terms of how some of this stuff works where we get maybe stuck, right? And really all stuck is a sign, maybe a reflection that we have some resistance to things that are happening or going on. And I think when we talked about, like on Monday, when we get excited and we say, let's go, and we're ready to jump in and we're going to turn it around, right? And then things never really turn around, right? We get turned around. And then Tuesday, I think we were talking about what next, not like what we're going to do next, but like what next is going to blow up and go wrong. And then we say to ourselves, well, this time will be different, right? And then how's it work? I think we talked about that on Wednesday, and we get into the phrase and the terminology of, I don't know. I don't know. It's not that we don't know. Maybe we don't ask. Maybe we have a different perspective, but we don't get into the mindset where we don't know. And then yesterday we talked about what do I do, right? And all that is just another sign. What we're really saying is, I need to work on that, right? You ever have something that you need to do and you say, I got to work on that, and then we procrastinate? Remember the box in the garage? You finally got it done, right? Just procrastinated. And so what we're going to do today is sort of bring this all together, and we're going to end it with the other question that pops up a lot, and that's, where am I? And really what we're doing when we talk about where am I is we're really saying, where do I start? Where do I begin? So we're going to get into that. And the whole part about all of this, if you go back and watch each one of these Monday through Friday and put this all together, you're going to see that a good part of the reason that things break down or don't work is it's either the perspective that we've got, or we're not congruent, or we haven't lined things up in a way to be effective. It's not about being right or wrong. It's not about being good or bad. It's about being effective. You do shit that works, or you do shit that doesn't work. And so focus on the stuff that works and, ignore the rest. So that's what we're going to do, and just jump into that. So let's dig in and start with basically, when we say, where am I? And we're looking financially at the whole world out in front of us, and we've got something to do to maybe turn that around. The next thing that pops in your brain, and the next thing you start thinking about, is, where do I begin, right? And so you start thinking, well, where do I begin? What's the first step? What we're really saying is, I'm not engaged with the money. I'm not engaged with my finance. I'm not engaged with, because it's not about where am I, right? It's not about that. It's not about where do I start or where do I begin. It's really about the engagement that we already have, or maybe that we don't have, in that the resistance that we have, not in making changes, but in doing stuff that is effective. And see, a lot of resistance comes from how we frame things. If something's right, then that means something else has to be wrong. If someone's good, someone else must be bad. And so the way we frame things is a reflection on not how we believe, but how we engage or how we don't engage in the things that we're doing. And that resistance pushing that is about this discomfort of change. It's not that there's discomfort of change, although we do get pretty comfortable sometimes in the positions that we're in. And I think sometimes that even myself, we're willing to tolerate a lot of shit that, sometimes we think, why am I even putting up with that, right? I've been there. So today we're going to go through the last of these 5 questions, where am I? And what we're really saying is, where do I start and where do I begin? And it's really more about the question that we're asking and the starting point, right? We all need a starting point. And so the way that I usually look at this situation when I'm working with maybe a client that's struggling with, how do I turn this around? And I just tell them, you don't turn it around. We go through the whole thing about turning shit around. And the one thing that I think that is probably one of the most important things, and sometimes it's a challenge to remember this, wherever you are, number one, and wherever you desire to be financially, or in your health, or in your relationship, or anything else, but we're only dealing with the money thing right now. Wherever you are, and wherever you desire to be, right? That's 2 points, point to point, right? The way you frame your perspective of where you are and where you desire to be is going to give you some indication about how much resistance you might have, not in making changes, but in doing the things that get you from here to there. And so the way I look at this is that it's not about willpower. Willpower belongs to Will. That's his power. It's our power. And what we've got to do is we've got to figure out how to make shit work. And it's not so much about making shit work, is that where are we going and where's our starting point? And so a lot of these things that pop up in our brain and our mind and we think about, these are little signs of resistance. These are little signs of distraction. And then we develop these patterns, right? We develop these routines. And it's just like John and Mrs. John, Deborah. And so when we were meeting with them finally, and they put this all together, and again, I went through the thing about, he was, complaining about her going to Macy's and, blah, blah, blah. And the whole thing was that, and with the chocolate frosty thing, right? We did the thing shoving the frosty in your face or whatever. What it was the pattern. And the pattern was reflective of a lot of stuff that was on auto pay, a lot of stuff that, he would have the attitude, I'll deal with it later, I'll take care of it later, blah, blah, blah. And her pattern was that I'll just wait till the first of the month, right? And everything got put off to the first of the month. And so what this was is we had two people that were disengaged financially, and they were disengaged in opposite directions financially, which was like, how does that even work, right? And then we start looking at the routines inside of the patterns. Here's the thing. You have, and just think about this today and over the weekend, and just pay attention to just your day. What are your routines, right? What are just your living, I'm living life and I'm happy I woke up this morning and I'm not dead, right? I'm alive. Thank God. Thank you, God, I'm alive. All right. What are your routines? And from the time that your feet hit the ground till the time your head hits the pillow and you go night night, what is your routine? And a good exercise, and you got to be prepared to, be brutally honest, right? You can't cheat on yourself, is just write it down, right? From hour to hour. And when you stop and you think about the things that we do in our daily routine, and you actually take the time once in a while to just pay attention to it, what you're going to find is that you got a lot of time that you're doing stuff to create activity, but we're not going anywhere, right? It's like we're just on the wheel, right? And I'm not saying that it's good, and I'm not saying that it's bad, but let me ask you a question. We can sit down and have a bag of Cheetos and watch, I don't know, watch the Beaver or Oprah or one of these shows, right? And we're eating a bag of Cheetos and we're doing that. Or maybe we can spend an hour putting together, our financial data, right? It's a choice, right? It's the Cheetos and TV or like my financial data. So why don't we do that? It's not that we don't do that. It's the resistance that we have. And unfortunately, the brain's kind of like water. It follows the path of least resistance, right? But we got a lot of resistance. And so what these techniques are designed to do, what these tools are designed to do, is just give you a different way to think about some of the choices you may have that you sometimes think you don't have. I have no choice. I had to do that. We always have a choice, right? And so our patterns and our routines make up the things that we do in our life. And then depending on what aspect of our life, like right now we're talking about the financial aspect, the outcomes that we get are a result of the choices that we make. If we make choices that are not serving the outcome that we truly desire, then we're going to get sucked into this belief that I'm going to do my best. Well, I used to be the guy that would do his best. And then I discovered, looking back on my life and a lot of stuff where I did my best, that my best wasn't good enough because my best gave me an excuse, right? Gave me an excuse to give up and not finish or whatever. And it's not that we're using excuses, but for lack of a better word, that's the description that we describe when we're doing things that really aren't working. So I don't like to look at things like they're excuses, because I feel like, for me, that seems like a little bit harsh and like you're judgmental or something. And God knows that we have no right to judge anybody, and not even ourselves. We're just, human beings being human. We do shit, and some of it works and a lot of it doesn't until we figure it out. So let me give you this hack and this technique. And maybe once in a while, take a break on yourself, right? Like chill and not be so harsh. I mean, we're the first one to beat ourselves up the most, right? And I think when you start looking at stuff through the lens of you did shit right or wrong, that's where we make the first step in some cow pie, right? It's not right or wrong. You did stuff and it didn't work. You probably did the best you could with what you had at the time. If you'd have had more resource, more information, more data, maybe if you'd asked for more help, all kinds of things, woulda, shoulda, coulda. I don't want to live a life that is woulda, coulda, shoulda. And so it's not about doing your best. It's really about staking a claim that we talked about and doing whatever it takes to get to the next step. Just do that, right? And so if you look at your patterns and you look at your daily routines and you break them down by hour by hour, and you're just being honest with yourself, right? Don't worry about me or your spouse or whatever, it doesn't matter. Only matters what you believe and what you see. What we're going to find is what John and Deborah found. And what was so cool about that is that once he realized that this thing about I'll get around to it, I'll do it, the procrastinate. You ever procrastinate? We all do, right? And so he was able to step up and take responsibility for that, right? Didn't say that he was doing anything wrong, but he owned it. He took responsibility. Yeah, that I'm making excuses and I wasn't doing that. And what was so cool, eventually all of that got turned around. I think their total debt deal with problems, including their about a $25,000 tax problem, it was maybe right about 120,000 when they were upside down. I'm going to tell you something though. In less than 12 months, we got it turned around and we got rid of the tax problem. It was about 25, maybe 20,000. They actually got some money back, and they got all of that solved. And what was so cool about it is that they actually developed a way to work together, being opposite directions about their money. And they would sit down and they would have like this, I think they called it like family hour or something on Saturday morning, right? And sort of like what Susan and I do. We have a time that is specific, that is a time certain, we don't put it off. And we sit down once a week and make some tea or coffee. And we sit down and we just go over all of the financial stuff that happened that week. We don't do it every day. We don't do it every night. We have a time set aside for that. And we're allocating the time. And I think it's like an hour, maybe an hour and a half at the most. And then every check that got written or everything that needed to be paid or things that came in or whatever, they just go in the Saturday morning basket. And we're not going to fret about them, worry about it. It's Saturday, we're going to open them up and we're going to sit down and go through it. And we're engaged. And, you know, we have two different views of money, but we have our view and what security would be for us. And so this is what they were able to do, John and Mrs. John and Deborah, and working this out. And it worked pretty cool. And what they found was that they were sometimes so disengaged from even knowing what the hell was going on. I think John said it was like something like 19, 20 months, the last time that they had balanced the checking account, right? And the thing about that is it's a reflection. And so when we look at patterns and we look at routines, we're looking for the things to answer the question, why isn't it working, right? Because the answer is in the patterns and the routines. And so we've spent a lot of time developing these tools. I think we've done probably over almost 30 focus groups with people that have been part of our focus groups, just to fine tune and perfect the process. And I know it's been at least 60 months or more. And so all the people that have helped me, all the people that have helped me get to that next step is because they believe in the cause. They believe in the mission that we're on here to help people really figure it out. And I think COVID really just kind of highlighted the emphasis of why that's so much more important today. I think John and Mrs. John, Deborah, I think they're like you and me. I think they're doing the same thing. They get up every day. They're trying to figure out how to make it work and what's the next step, right? And at the same time, what about the future, the uncertainty, and blah, blah, blah. When you look at the patterns and you look at the routines, and that's all we're talking about right here, and you're wondering why stuff isn't working, that's where we're going to find the answer. We're not going to find the judgment and the guilt or the blame. We're going to find the answer. We're going to figure out that that's why some of this stuff is not working. And it's not that you did something right or wrong, good or bad. You did some stuff that it didn't get you what you desired. And maybe we weren't clear on being more clear about what we desired, right? And when we start thinking about what we need and what we want, it's like, you know, I need to go to the store and get a cherry pie. It's like, what? Need, and we get confused with want. And we say we need, you know, I need to eat a chocolate frosty, right? No, you don't need to eat a chocolate frosty. You want to eat a chocolate frosty. And in the human scale of need, you know, we have basic needs, you know, shelter, food, security, warmth, companionship. Those are human needs, right? Everything else is a want, okay? Everything else is a want, but we get confused. We get confused between what we need and what we want, and then our routines get backwards, and then our patterns are inside out, and then we think we're going to turn it around, and the only thing getting turned around is us, and that's why. So as we work through and as we use these tools, and what's so cool is for everybody that's going to sign up and go through this whole thing in March, this is going to be an eye-opener. It's going to give you a chance to look at things in a different perspective that you probably have never seen before from that point of view. That's all it is. It's a different point of view. And what's cool about it is what it allows you to do going forward. It allows you to take responsibility, take the lead, and design your financial life however the hell you want to design it, right? But it also removes the ability for you to make excuses, if that's what we want to call it. You take responsibility because you understand, you know, these were the choices I made. They weren't the best choices. They were the best I could with what I had. And then stop, you know, really beating yourself up on the head with a stick, right? And so going through this, like John and Deborah, was sort of an eye-opener for them, because when we looked at the receipts and we looked at the patterns and we saw some of the routines, it was kind of an easy fix at that point. We just tweaked a little bit here and tweaked a little bit there, And then we laid it all out. We had a game plan, and we were engaged, and they had a little bit of a support network. My staff at the time, back in the day, I had about, I don't know, 14 or 15 people working for me at the time. And they were just awesome, just like my staff today. It was one of those things that everybody knew what the mission was, right? The mission was to help people figure it out. Mission wasn't to fill out a tax return or call the IRS and get in a fight about who owes what, right? They got a job to do, and so do we. It was really about a bigger, it's like you're doing something bigger than you, right? And so when you look at your financial life, you got to look at it from that point of view. You're doing something bigger than yourself. You're actually defining the financial life you want to have, and you're actually getting to design it in a way that you want. And then what you've got to do, if you've got a spouse, you've got to figure out how to make it work like John and Deborah made it work, right? It's okay to have a completely different view about the value of going to Nordy's, right? All I know is my wife loves Nordy's, and that's all that matters. So I just make it work, right? And so when we get caught up and we get confused and we say, where am I? Where do I start? Where do I begin? It's like, really, I'm going to tell you, where would you like to start? Where would you like to begin? Because that process is really about the things that really are bringing up the concerns for you. And so we've been able to take all of this stuff, share a little bit each day, each week, even this week, as we get ready to go into next month. And we've got a lot of people that have put a lot of time into making this opportunity available so you can actually go through a real process and come out on the other side with just rock star confidence about how you're going to do this. And that, if nothing else, is more than most people have ever had in terms of taking hold of their financial life. So what I want to do is make sure that you have everything that you need in the resources. So I'll be working today on that, and over the weekend we're going to be moving to a new broadcasting platform, so it will actually feed into our pages and actually feed into the group, and maybe I think to the YouTube. And so I think John was working with Takia, and they got, and I helped hook some of that stuff up. So we're going to be testing that. And so a little bit about the notifications will change a little bit next week. Here's the last thing I'm going to share with you. Take a break and give yourself a break, and understand that we've got some patterns and routines that are working against us and not giving us what we desire, right? That's starting to just shift a little bit and looking at stuff and just asking a different question. Is it working, or is it not getting me what I desire? If it's not working, then you have a choice. Do something about it or not. That's your choice. And so when you go through this material and you go through it to get familiar with it, don't make too much of any of it, because until you start the program for the month of March and you actually go through this in a formal way, it's not going to make a lot of sense to you. It looks kind of cool, and that's why we're putting it up there, so you just kind of get familiar with it and it's not foreign to you. The process is very effective. I know it because we've done it so many times. And it's really a situation that you get to decide any way that you want how you're going to build this. And part of that is we're going to start learning to reconnect to our core strength and our confidence, right? And it's always there, but sometimes it's a little bit hard to find it. And so when we think that we're afraid or we have fear or whatever, we're going to learn a technique and a couple of new hacks that's going to, never be an issue before. Next week, what we're going to do is just spend some time getting ready for this thing that we're going to do in March. And hopefully we get a lot of people signing up, but I don't care if we have 1 or 1,000, doesn't matter. I'm going to give everything to make sure that whoever's participating in that gets the value of how to design and how to do this, because I think it's that important that we do that. At the end of the day, make the choices that are giving you what you desire, and just that's all you can do. And I don't think anybody can do any more than that. Have an awesome weekend. Have an awesome day. Take some time and look at the patterns and the routines. How do you spend the average day? And is it working to help you have the things you desire? If not, then I don't need to tell you what to do. You already know what to do. Do something different that gives you what you desire. That's how it works. Have an awesome day, and we'll talk to